What is up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Pez's Picks. I say it every week. I'm going to continue to say it. I am not Pez. I'm Jeff Hartman, one of the hosts here of Pez's Picks. The guy that you see next to me for watching live on YouTube, or that you hear, the other voice is Pez himself. Pez, what's going on?
Well, coming off a hot week, Jeff, we're feeling good. Eagles are interviewing candidates to fix up our coordinator situation, and looks like the sky's going to remain blue and the world's going to remain the same.
Can you tell
Um,
me? I saw this on Twitter that Roseman and Sirianni were over 30 minutes late to their own press conference that they were having because they just fired their court. What's up with that, man? Where's the
well,
consideration for the media?
I mean, who knows? Maybe Sirianni's job was being discussed. I don't know. A lot of emotion this year out of that team, in that room. Some of the names I'm hearing, I'm not too excited about, but we'll see. We're keeping the hope alive. I mean, I know they're bringing Ron Rivera in. I guess they're looking to help the Cowboys and the Redskins. I don't know, uh, but I got faith. I got faith in Howie. Howie's a genius GM, and Jeff Lurie is the best owner in the league, in my opinion. Uh, they bring in talented guys and they make big moves. So
Yeah.
I don't expect them to bring in anybody but a great coordinator and player. From what we've read, I think Jalen had a lot to do with Johnson being his offensive coordinator. Rumors are out this week that he lost faith in him, didn't want him fired, but he was calling his own plays in the huddle, which it looked like, right? I mean, it looked like they didn't know what they were doing half the time out there. So I got faith in them.
Okay.
Come this time next year, we're going to be back, looking at Super Bowl talk with them. But we got four good teams here left, Jeff, and then
That
this
we do.
weekend, we've been humming too, Jeff, since college football bowl season started. I can't remember the last losing week we've had. We've been humming. We might be going on 2 months here. We're rolling, man.
Yeah, so when I take a look in the NFL, I mean, last week obviously went 3-1. Week prior 2-2, 2-1 the week before that, 2-1 the week before that, perfect 5-0 the week before that. Yeah, you got to
Whew.
go back a ways until there it is. So it's the week that the Steelers played the Patriots on Thursday Night Football. We went a disastrous 1-3 that week.
Is that November? Maybe we're rolling, Jeff. We're rolling. We're
Yeah,
staying hot.
yeah, absolutely.
2024. We're gonna roll through 2024. Whew, I can't wait. Can't wait to keep this thing going.
And quick programming note for all the listeners out there or viewers of Pez's Picks, just know this show's not going away when football ends. We're going to continue the gambling talk. This is not just a football gambling podcast. We might talk about basketball, the upcoming baseball season. We'll definitely be talking about golf tournaments, all that stuff will still be on Pez's Picks. But this show, let's talk about the NFL playoffs, the divisional round, a great weekend of games. And you brought the data. You brought the data last week. You had your guy. I can't remember his name.
Action man.
The
The
action
action.
man? Yes, he
Yes, sir.
provided all the data and almost pulled off a perfect 4-0. I mentioned this earlier, 3-1 on the week. Let's start off with the first game on Saturday. The Ravens -9 versus the Texans. Had us sweating a little bit at halftime, tied up 10-10. The second half, Lamar and the boys, they loosen up. They knock off the rust. They win big. They cover that spread, and you get the win. Pez, what were your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it all worked out like we thought it would, Jeff. CJ Stroud, love the kid. I'm looking for big things from him next year. I think they're going to, well, if they're smart, they're going to get him some weapons. They're going to bring in some receivers and, maybe a more significant running back. But they didn't have the juice to beat the Ravens.
Yeah.
The total worked out for us as well.
Yeah.
Those numbers held true. And, it looked like,
Barely, barely,
well,
barely. The number was
W's
43.
win by a half a point or you win by 50. W's a W in the Vegas gambling world. I didn't have too much stress about that, Jeff. It looked like Baltimore, that first half, they shook the rust off a little bit, and CJ was good. I mean, CJ's a good player. Houston's a tough team, but they just didn't have the juice to put up a full 60 minutes. And, the Ravens, apparently Lamar at halftime gave his most emotional and biggest leadership talk. He got into the guys and said that we know we're winning this thing, and I like hearing that. I like hearing
Yeah.
that coming out of that guy. He's turned into the player that they always wanted him to be. Harbaugh's lucky to have him. I don't think Harbaugh will have a job without that Lamar Jackson. I mean, awesome guy. Happy for him and played great. I don't know how anyone's going to stop him. Guy's fantastic player. Run, pass, and I don't know. Seems to be growing into the big leader we thought he would be.
So when I was watching the games, and because obviously I always keep tabs, I have my notebook, and as games are playing out, probably like halftime or so, I'll go over and I'll check the notebook. Want to double check the numbers. How's Pez looking this week? And so I see the -9 at halftime. I'm thinking, that's not boding well. A lot of the games prior to that, going back to the wild card, were close contests, and then the total of 43, also at 10-10. You're thinking this isn't good. They finish out 34-10, which barely gets us the over. It definitely covers the 9 points. Texans have a great season. I think there's a bright future there, but just the Ravens, like you said, are the better football team. And we'll be talking about them in the AFC Championship game pick here shortly.
Sure
But
thing.
then let's go over to the other AFC game. Okay. And this was a big game. This was the game that everyone was talking about.
Woo.
Bills hosting the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. The first time Josh Allen, I think, had Patrick Mahomes in Buffalo, and also Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game, not a neutral site game. Chiefs find a way to win this game when the Bills were spotting them 2.5. Pez, you had to like the pick.
Loved it, Jeff. And, the numbers posed well, and it came out and played well in that one, too. Kansas City seemed to make Buffalo do what Kansas City wanted them to do. Andy Reid's always been a big bend, don't break defensive guy. They gave up a ton of yards running, which I don't know if bodes too well. They did not sack Josh Allen once, and I don't know if that bodes well going into this week, but they did not let Josh Allen light that field up throwing the ball. I think he was held to about 185 yards passing. He did have some big runs and ran a couple in. But Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey, we talked about. Kelsey the week before had an off game. Guy dropped a couple wide open balls. He was on fire. A guy that I look for that is not out there for Kansas City, and I think if they had him in that game, and I think going forward and what we're going to talk about in that championship, the McKinnon player that they had last year, kind of a receiver slot, kind of Desmond Howard kind of guy that would work out of the backfield last year, has been injured. He's out. And they just don't seem to have a little pop coming out of that backfield and out of that side. Pacheco ran like a man. Vineland, South Jersey farm boy. He looked like he was running into hitting guys like he was doing against Miami. And yeah, I'm happy for Andy. I'm happy for Mahomes and those guys. Fun team. Taylor was there.
Yep.
And the Kelsey brothers. I mean, our boy Kelsey, our Philadelphia Eagle, our center, he took that game over. Guy was drinking out of bowling balls. He was carrying kids to beat Taylor. Had his shirt off. I love him. I don't know if I hope he comes back or if he rides off in the sunset. A healthy guy, but good win for Kansas. But remember, that's a long flight.
Yeah.
You got to fly Kansas City, cold game. They're back home, and we'll be talking about some numbers and some data going into this week with them.
Weather for Baltimore this weekend is actually supposed to be a little bit warmer. It's going to be in the mid 40s, maybe a slight chance of rain, but still it's not going to be a washout or something like a torrential downpour. So you think about the Chiefs, who played in sub-freezing weather against Miami at home at Arrowhead, and then they had to go to Buffalo and they're playing in cold again. It's going to feel like a heat wave, so that's going to be interesting to keep that in the back of your mind. But let's go over the last game in the divisional round, which did not pan out for us. The only loss of the week, the 49ers, they win 27-24, not enough to cover the 9.5-point spread. Pez, you had to be disappointed with this one.
Well, one of my other partners, we'll call him the Yogi, another guy that me and the Action Man have been running with our whole lives. He said it best. Sometimes a losing bet is still a good bet. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that, Jeff, but it kind of makes sense. San Fran should have blown that game out. San Fran did what we thought they were going to do. But I picked up some indicators watching that game. It seems Shanahan, and this has been a curse for Shanahan and his dad a little bit too, they get gun shy in the playoffs. They get conservative. Mm-hmm. The playbook tightens up. He did not seem to trust Purdy throwing that ball down the field. And the glaring thing that we noticed, Debo. When Debo's out of that game, that offense shuts down. A couple other things that we've been picking up on. I don't know if it was the midseason trade or what happened. That defense does not look as good as that defense did in the beginning of the year. Love had his way a little bit. He does throw 2 picks, and that's probably the decider of the game. But they should have covered that. They didn't look like a confident team. They didn't look like a steamrolling team. Baltimore did. Kansas City did. Detroit did. But they did not look like a confident team. And that's something we're going to look at talking about this week's plays. I feel bad I didn't take my Detroit boys. They played great. What a game. I mean, that was awesome. Those
Yeah.
guys deserve to be in this championship round for sure.
We have a great San Francisco 49ers feed on the Fans First Sports Network, and I was listening to part of a podcast that Rob put out, and he talked about when was the last time the 49ers actually looked really good. He said it was probably when they played the Eagles. That was probably the last time.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, they just something doesn't seem to be clicking. I agree with you about Samuel, with him being banged up, that shoulder injury. Everyone wants to kind of say, oh, he'll still be able to play. Yeah, until he takes a shot. And then what's going to happen? That's the
Yep.
question. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I agree with the Shanahan getting super conservative, and when you're
Sure.
going up against a Dan Campbell who's not gonna be conservative, you have to
No.
wonder who does that bode well for, but
Well,
let's go ahead.
think about that Baltimore game when they went, and it's a basketball kind of thing. They dunked on San Fran. When a guy dunks on you, think of Dikembe Mutombo shaking that finger. You're not going up against that guy again. Or when he blocks you, or you're gonna Olay, you're gonna get out of the way. They got dunked on. They got blocked. They got. You know, I don't think I've seen a team get punched in the face as hard that was rolling. I don't think they've been the same since. And Baltimore dismantled that team. They exposed Purdy. I think he had 3 picks in the first half, if
Yep.
I remember right. And that kid has not looked the same. And what? Tough to get back on the front of your feet when you're on your heels in a fight. And this fight's going to get tougher and tougher going forward.
Absolutely. So let's shift focus now and talk about the upcoming conference championship games. The first game is the AFC game, which is going to be at M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore. Mentioned the weather. Pez, let me ask you this, because I said this on the NFL Whip Round podcast on our NFL feed with Coach Kevin Smith. I said, M&T Bank Stadium doesn't get credit for being a tough place to play, but it's a difficult place to play. When it comes to venue, outside of the weather, do you factor that into your bet at all?
Absolutely, Jeff. I mean, if this game was in Kansas City, I think we're going with the other team. I mean, we're going with Baltimore. We're going with the home team. I lived in D.C. for a while. That whole area is damp. It's a swampland.
Yeah.
The air is heavy. It's a weird place to play. I've spent time in Kansas City as well. Dry air, nice place, easy to breathe. You're in prairie. You're in God's country. If Baltimore isn't one of the most polluted places in the United States, I don't know what is. They got factories spewing out every color gas and every color smoke you can think of, Jeff.
This is
You
true.
got traffic issues. Baltimore, I like the town a lot. I've had a lot of fun there. Fells Point, it's a good time, but it feels weird. And I was listening to the McAfee show. He was talking a little bit about locker rooms. I was hoping he said Baltimore's locker room was terrible, like Buffalo's or some of the older stadiums. He said it was okay, but I checked the weather. I don't know how much rain there yet, but it's going to be gusty winds, and blowing off that Atlantic Ocean. They're going to get 10 to 20 mile an hour gusts. That could be tough, especially with Kansas City. I think they're going to be limited in what they can do. I do not think Pacheco is going to have his way like he did last week. And I think it's going to come down to Mahomes. We got a lot of data going in, good and bad, for this play, Jeff. We got Baltimore, number 2 against the spread team this year right now. The finish right now 12-6. The data really shows they're the number 1 team against the spread. So that makes a lot of sense to me. KC not too far behind. You've got Baltimore covering 66, 67% of the time. KC about 61. Ravens number 1 defense and holding their teams to points, giving up 16 a game. KC number 2 defense, giving up only 17 a game. So pretty even teams so far. I mean, we look at the data and we look at covering. Having said that, got to give Baltimore a little bit of the edge early on here. Both defenses are solid. But the big piece of data that's fueling the weakness that we see in Kansas City, that's giving Pez's picks the confidence to take Baltimore. Kansas City giving up 113 rushing yards a game, 17th in the league in rushing defense to the number 1 rushing offense. Ravens are averaging 156 on the ground a game. You got Lamar. You got a solid run game. Coming off of that game in Buffalo, they got to be a little tired. Their rush defense looked terrible last week. I mean, you give up 182 rushing yards to Buffalo, average run game. I mean, you take Allen out of that. Guy ran for 72, 2 touchdowns. Kansas City did not record a sack. Both are bad omens going up against the number 1 rushing team in Lamar Jackson at home. I mean, that to me is glaring. And I think the Ravens are going to be able to do what they want. And I think Kansas City's going to have to work a miracle, which we've seen it happen. And then, Lamar's won 4 straight games by 14 or more points. Baltimore, the first team in the NFC history to lead the league in scoring defense, takeaways, and sacks. All great things for us, okay? And I love Baltimore. Some positive stats about Mahomes. And sometimes we look at trends and we look at data. You're looking for when they're going to end. Everything ends, Jeff, right? Everything goes. Flowers are great, roses are beautiful, but everything dies at some point. Mahomes hasn't turned over or been sacked in 3 straight playoff games. That's the first time quarterback's done that in NFL history. I think at some point that's got to end. I mean, can he go up against Buffalo and then go home, come back against Baltimore, and not be sacked and not put up a turnover? Just don't see it happening, Jeff. They're an average rushing team, 19th in the league. They rush about 100 yards a game. Pacheco was solid last week. I do not think teams run the ball well against the Baltimore Ravens. I do not think that Kansas City's offense is going to be able to do what they want. I think Baltimore's will, and I think Baltimore is going to show that they are the team to beat in the Super Bowl this week. I honestly do.
So you are taking the Ravens. The current spread is 3.5.
3.5. It's gone up a little bit.
I was going to say I saw it go up all the way up to almost 5 and 5.5 in some books. Those are not the most popular books, we'll put it that way, but still.
Sure.
Well, do you think this is going to be a close game?
And I was talking about with some of my partners here. I looked at a lot of the totals, Jeff. And this is a caveat with this week, and it always is. When you get to the final 4 teams, you don't have a bad team in this lot. I wouldn't be shocked if we have a blowout in both of these games. And if you look at it, you got to be honest with yourself. All 4 of these teams could blow out one another, right? If Kansas City blows out Baltimore, no one's going to be shocked. If Baltimore blows out Kansas City, nobody's going to be shocked. So I think the total is a tougher bet than the game. I think what we're going to see is a close game early. I think we're going to see Baltimore start pulling away. I think it's going to be tough for Kansas City to move that ball and put points on the board. I think it's going to be a lot easier for Baltimore to do that. Baltimore, best kicker in the history of the league as well. That's going to be significant. I mean, you're going to have to put points up consistently. And I think they're going to tick the clock and they're going to run that ball. And, Lamar has shown no signs of letting up this year. I can't remember the last time the guy had a bad game. I mean, he is on a mission. They paid him last week. He talked about it. He led the team up at halftime. The guy's turned into the leader that we want him to be. I love it. And I think we're going to see Baltimore walking into the Super Bowl for the first time since, I guess, Ray Lewis was around, right? And was that Joe Flacco quarterback in that team about, 20 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
So I like it. Was it 15 maybe? I don't know. Who knows, Jeff?
All
these games seem the same. Ever since COVID, it seems about 5 to 10 to 15 years ago, right? So I love Baltimore.
Okay. I can't get over the fact, though, that the Chiefs have been there, done that so many times that this is just another game for them. They're going to be able to come in and play loose. I got to think that the Ravens in the first half, it's going to, I feel like it could be a very reminiscent of last week where it's a little bit slow going. They got to warm up to the task. But the problem is that you're not playing a rookie quarterback. You're playing one of the greatest quarterbacks in the game, if not the greatest quarterback in the game, in Patrick Mahomes. I think if the Chiefs have stand a chance, they've got to strike early. That's just my own personal opinion. You got to get on the Ravens early. You need to make Lamar throw the ball a lot to get back into the game. That's the recipe for success, but that's easier said than done.
Sure is. And that Kansas City offense, they're a step slower than they were last year. They're down players from last year. Reports are Mark Andrews is finally going to come back. I really hope he does. That offense opens up completely for Lamar over the middle of the field. I think all trends are pointing for Lamar and the Ravens to win this game easily. I really do. I would not be shocked by 10 or more. And that's what we're going for.
Okay, very good. Let's go to the nightcap, which is the NFC Championship game, the conference championship game between the Detroit Lions heading on the road to the San Francisco 49ers. The game isn't even in San Francisco. I think it's in Santa Clara. It's not actually in San Francisco anymore. But nonetheless, the San Francisco 49ers are spotting the Lions 7 points. And you are saying take the underdog here and take the Lions punching their ticket to the first Super Bowl ever.
I think destiny just has it going this way, Jeff. What a great story. Everybody loves Dan Campbell. I mean, that team's playing hot. They've got great things happening on both sides of the ball. And San Francisco seemed to be leaking oil for a long time now. Detroit's trending the other direction. I, I was talking about with some of my old guys. Very rare in these divisional championships do you have both home favorites winning. It just doesn't seem to happen. I don't know why. Tough to take both home teams, and I can't imagine giving 7 points to the Detroit Lions after what they've done, especially with Deebo Samuel. We could see this line move a lot. If it turns out that Deebo's not playing, I wouldn't be surprised if this line goes down to 5. I could see a big drop happening. If it comes out that he's 100% healthy, you might even see it move up to 7.5. So this is a game to watch that injury report. I think Deebo Samuel is a key. He did not look good last week. They're calling it a shoulder injury. They checked him for a concussion. I think there's a lot of things going on in that situation. And, Detroit hits. He is not going to get pushed out of bounds. He is going to be getting up off the ground. I've had shoulder injuries. Once you take one good shot, that thing seems to be numb, and that thing seems to be chasing you the whole game. Niners, 18-1 when Purdy, McCaffrey, and Deebo play the entire game. They are 2-4 when they don't.
Wow.
That's a significant stat. They lost 3 straight this year when Deebo was injured. They narrowly escaped getting out of there last week with him in a limited role. I think that's a good trend for the Lions. Now, we're going to get through some of these bad trends for the Lions, Jeff, because I know people out there are going to be reading them. Lions haven't won a road playoff game since 1957.
Oh, my gosh.
11 straight road playoff longest in NFL history. Here's another trend. 13 straight road game losses at San Francisco. That's the longest active streak in the NFL. So 13, lucky number for us. They got 13 out of the way. I think that Dan Campbell's talking about this week. Don't be afraid of these things. We're a different Lions team. We're the best that we've ever had. And it's our time to break through this wall and break through these trends. I think Detroit's a more confident team going into this game. I think the play calling last week showed that. They tightened up that playbook a lot. Purdy does not look like the freewheeling guy did in the beginning of the year. And I think the Lions are here to play. Good news for the Lions. First time in NFL history, we have a playoff matchup between the first pick in the draft being a quarterback and a last pick in the draft being a quarterback. Advantage Lions, right? I'm going to take a number 1 pick overall against the last pick overall. Lions, impressive 6-3 record on the road. Another advantage Lions. Weather shouldn't be a factor. It's going to be 70 degrees, maybe 65. Should be perfect. I mean, San Francisco, that air, there's no humidity. It's going to be great. Baltimore blew them out. D-line has not been as good since Chase Young trade. Purdy has been gun shy. They just don't seem to have that spark that they did. I don't think they recovered from that. I don't know what happened with that trade, Jeff. It looked like when they got Chase Young, that defense was never going to look back. They haven't looked as good. They haven't had as much pressure on quarterbacks. Green Bay moved the ball on them at their will. Going into that fourth quarter, I think Green Bay was up 7, wasn't it? Or maybe up 10 points. So shocking to me that, San Fran kind of limped through that game the way they did. Or maybe not. Maybe they just kind of ran out of gas, and maybe the league has figured it out a little bit like the Eagles. Detroit, currently the number 1 team, data-wise, in the league against the spread. 13-6 against the spread this year. 68% covers this year, Jeff. That's why I've been riding them a lot. And, beyond a lot of people's belief, San Francisco average at best against the spread this year. They're only 9-9. So a team 500 against the number 1 team against the spread, I'll take that all day. When we really look at the data, and it's something that you have to do, very even teams. Both teams, top 5 passing games for the offense. Both teams, rushing, top 5. Points-wise, you've got 27 for Detroit putting up a game. You got 28 putting up for San Fran a game. And then we get into defensive stats. Very tight. Number 2 rush defense in the league, giving up 88 a game with the Lions. Number 3 rush defense in the league, giving up 89 or San Francisco. I think it's going to be a very even game. And I think at the end of the day, we're going to go with coaching and we're going to go with quarterback play. And I'm going to go with Goff, experience, number 1 pick guy. He's won big games against a shaky guy that was drafted last. It's always got that hanging over his head, right? That guy knows that's what everybody says. He tries to play like he wasn't the last guy picked. Thinks about that Baltimore game. Detroit, 42 sacks on the season. I mean, San Fran had 48, I believe, too. So I think we're going to have a lot of pressure, and I think the better coach and the better quarterback are going to walk away the winner. Plus, we're getting 7. Taking 7 points, I'll take a free touchdown and start that game with the Detroit Lions. I love this play all day.
So to recap the championship bets, we have the Ravens -3.5. He says take Baltimore. Detroit getting 7 on the road against San Francisco. You say take the Lions. My question is Legs going to have some parlays for us this weekend?
Oh, Legs parlay. He wanted me to remind everybody, Jeff. Legs
He
had
was
a nice
close.
parlay. 3 yards for Amon St. Brown. 3 yards, he would have hit that parlay. I tell you what, last week must have been a good parlay week. I had people screenshotting me plays. And I hate to push these parlays, Jeff. Like we talked about, I think we talked about off air last week. Casinos average about a 5% win margin on regular bets. For every 100, they win about 5. For every 100 bet on parlays, they win at least $20. So they don't care about these parlays. They push them. They hope everybody's playing them. I think you got to tread lightly with the parlays. I think you got to, put them in as a fun situation. I wouldn't be putting in $50, $100 parlays. You want to throw a $2 to $5 parlay in, that's a nice action. But at the end of the day, straight bets, you can rely on data. You can rely on experience, and that's what we're going to keep pushing here. But Legs will have some action for us.
I bet. Not yet. You can check it out on fansfirstsports.com. And when I get Legs' parlay, I'll write it up and we'll have it on the website.
He's working on it as we speak, and the guy needs a big W. He needs to push through to the summer. The guy's a legendary beach guard in our area. They're collecting unemployment right now, Jeff. They're not getting paychecks, these guys. So we got to get them back working.
Very good. Any final thoughts on championship weekend coming? Or do we have a bonus bet this week? I didn't even ask. Forgot to ask.
We did. We got one, Jeff. And this is like a parlay bonus. I'm not going to say put a lot. Anytime we put a golf play out there.
Oh, here we go.
This is a feel, Jeff. It's not something that I'm going to say put $100 on.
The farmers.
We got the farmers. We got Torrey Pines. If my man Tiger was playing, Jeff, of course I have to take him. That guy could play that course blindfolded. But Phil Mickelson too, who's not allowed to play anymore. Unfortunately. When you play Torrey Pines, I've been to that course. It's gorgeous. You got to put the ball in the fairway. You got to be a shot maker, though. For people that aren't into golf out there, shot makers, they can hit their driver 330. They can lay it off. They can hit a burner. They can hit that driver head high 220. Not many guys out there like that anymore. Tiger was one of them. Phil, of course, is one of them. Sahith Theegala, great shot maker player, great young kid, solid putter. You got to win at Torrey Pines to be talked about being, some sort of finesse, great guy here on this West Coast swing. I'm going with Sahith Theegala. I don't have his odds in front of me right now, Jeff, but I'm sure they're decent. I love him. Hard-working guy, family guy, loves the game. He's not just a bomber. You got to be able to have a short game. There's a big rough out there, a lot of elevated greens. You got to be able to come up with magic. That's my guy this week, Sahith Theegala.
See, you always just go with the straight up winner, which is like blindfolded darts. For me, I like the plays where it's like, hey, can finish it, 2 guys finishing in the top 20. Sure. Or you can even do head to head. I'm going to have you on my golf podcast as the Masters gets closer. We're going to be doing some really fun stuff and talking about gambling and all that. So we'll talk about that. But in the meantime, Pez, enjoy the games this weekend. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we get 2 winners.
Let's do it, Jeff. And, let's go Lions. I feel like the whole country's pulling for them. Let's do it.
All right. Hey, that's just been Pez's Picks. Check us out every single Thursday morning, and we'll talk next week. See you, Pez.
See you, Jeff.